Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm super excited because we're kicking off our season 3 guest host. And my first guest host is my dear friend, fellow IO psychologist, fellow executive coach, business owner, 757. I don't know, we have a lot in common. JMU, I mean, it's a lot in common. Dr. Brian Cruz. So, welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be a guest host here. Like Arlene said, we've known each other for quite a while. Same high school too,
Yeah.
and middle school.
Middle
Wow.
school and middle school, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I am, like you said, executive coach, and a industrial organizational psychologist, mostly doing now a lot of teamwork, consulting, team development, leadership team development. It's a lot of fun, and it is informative about what we're going to talk about today. Without much further ado, I'll just say, hey, if you want to contact me, you can contact me at Brian Crew at changeandprocess.com or at Is Your Mind Right on Instagram.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, I am so happy to have you on the show. And I know you've been on the podcast before, but this is a really different topic and a topic we were both mutually working on, actually
Mhm.
unbeknownst to each other for a while. So, to kick off season 3 on the podcast, I did a couple of episodes about just overviewing burnout, what it is, a model, strategies for tackling it. But as I was preparing for that, I think we had a conversation and I was like, oh, are you working on burnout resources too? Are you working on tools as well? Because it seems like a lot of our clients, friends, have just been experiencing burnout, like trying to figure it out, trying to figure out how to recover from it, knowing when you're in it. And so, when we were talking, I think one thing we both said is that we gain a lot from people's personal experiences. So not
Yep.
only the theory, not only the strategies and tactics, but like the real deal, like what
Yeah.
really happened.
Talk to me for real. Give me the skinny on it for real. What was it like for you? I don't want to know about the book stuff right now. I want to know, what did you go through? What was it like for you? It made it more real.
Yeah.
I think I went through it first, but not much
Mhm.
sooner than you.
Mhm.
But and then you brought it back to my mind when you were saying what was going on with you, and I was like, yeah, yes, and it's a connection because the feelings were so real when you go through it, and the lack thereof. Because I was like some of the feelings were gone that I
Mhm.
used to experience; they were just gone.
Mhm.
Um, for me, I was excited to know, what is that saying? Misery loves company. I don't want people to be miserable, but it was nice to know it wasn't only me
Right.
and that
I'm not
other
alone.
successful people,
Yeah.
yeah, go through this. Exactly. And sadly, we are really not alone. Is what I'm
Yeah.
finding. Just so many people are going through it. Um, we expect a lot of each other and ourselves, right?
Mhm.
And nobody wants to say no. Um, and nobody wants to admit that they can't do it all. I know I did. I know I didn't.
Mhm.
I was chasing money and fame and success and all of that good stuff. Right? It's like,
Mhm.
what's wrong with me?
Yes. Very alluring. It's all very alluring.
So I have questions for you, but are you going to start with me?
Yeah, I'll start with you. I'll start with you. And just, by way of, I guess, introduction. So, what we discussed for today is just basically sharing our personal experiences. We've shared some of it with each other, but I don't think all of it. So, some of this is discovery as well. And we've
Hmm.
just, I don't know if it was smart or not. We've just agreed to bare our souls, scars, and lessons with all of our friends in the podcast world, which is all of you all,
Now
with
that you mention it, I want to go. No, I'm just joking.
with a hope that you all learn something from our experiences, kind of things we did right, things we did wrong, how we recovered, lessons from it in a, more real and kind of storied format. So, with that, I'd say let's jump in. Welcome to Anelra. Have you ever thought about unlocking the full potential of yourself or the leaders in your organization? Imagine the impact of executive coaching. Coaching is not a fad. It's a powerful process that drives leadership excellence, career advancement, and organizational engagement. Did you know? A survey of 100 executives revealed that the average return on investment for executive coaching is nearly 6 times the cost. It is the Fortune 500's best kept secret. At Anelra, we stand out for 3 compelling reasons. 1, client love. We love our clients and they love us. We boast one of the highest Net Promoter scores in the industry, with an average satisfaction rating of 9.7 out of 10. 2. Expert coaches. Our coaches bring both advanced coaching expertise and real-world experience, offering practical, actionable insights tailored to your needs. And 3. A diverse team. We match your unique needs with our diverse cadre of coaches, ensuring the perfect fit for your growth journey. Anelra provides coaching solutions that work, unlocking potential, driving results, and fostering engagement. Ready to transform your leadership impact? Visit us at www.enelratalent.com. That's ENELRA talent.com. Anelra, coaching solutions that work. I have my first question for you, which is, when was the first time or a time you remember feeling burned out? Like, just tell us about an experience you've had with feeling burned out.
I think the first time I ever remember was many, many years ago, but it only lasted 2 days.
Mm,
So I don't want to go with that one because I think 2 days, no one notices. You can push through your 2 days. And when I got to the
mm-hmm,
weekend, I was fine. But I think I had worked too hard for like that week,
mm-hmm,
um, more than I probably should have. But the first time I really had like real burnout, like that lasted months even, I kind of noticed it because, like I said, like you said, I'm an entrepreneur, so I thrive off of referrals. And a past client came to me with some work, and they were like, "Hey, we would really love for you to do this for us." And I was like, "Oh, this work sounds great," and I was excited for about 4 minutes. And I was like, "Okay, I'll get you that proposal for that."
yeah,
And then the next day I was thinking, yeah, I need to do this proposal, but
mm,
I'll do it at the end of the week. And mind you, I wasn't doing anything that was keeping me from doing it. I wasn't busy.
yeah.
I was watching TV and
Mhm.
looking in the refrigerator to see what I could eat and hanging out with my friends. And I remember
Right.
thinking, well, I'm getting really lazy.
Yeah.
And then that deadline came and went, and somebody else called me and they were
Mm,
like, hey, we got some more work for you. And I was like, I'm gonna get right on that. And that deadline came and went.
mm-hmm.
And I think I was like, well, if I don't make money, I can't pay bills. But I just had a total lack of energy to do the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that I used to be excited to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, I was the person who would get a call about new work and I'd be excited about it and not tell people. I bore my friends to death about talking about what was coming
Yeah.
up. And I wouldn't even, I would forget it. It was just like,
Mm-hmm.
talk to you. How much longer are you going to talk about this project? When the client
Mm,
was calling me, like, I just didn't want to do anything. And for me, that came from like about an intense year, maybe 14 months of doing work I hated that
mm,
paid me really, really, really well. So I had to say yes. And then there was a client one of my better clients as well. And they gave me probably the biggest project I had at that point, doing work that I was really good at but hated.
mm.
Um, and so I kind of did that and I suffered through. And I think if you recall, I called you up because I realized at some point I was like, um, the data analysis is coming up, and that's really, really boring. So, do you know anybody who can do that, right?
Oh yeah, I
So,
remember this. Yes.
yeah, you got me a wonderful intern. You connect me with your professor, your former professor, and got me a wonderful intern who turned out to be great. And that was probably the best part of the whole work was actually the mentoring piece, right? Was
Mm,
something I enjoyed, right? Other than that, it was great client, dreadful work for me.
mm,
Um, and so I forced myself to do good work for them, and I didn't take breaks, and I didn't. I recognized I was going down. I
mm-hmm.
recognized I was like, I don't want to do anymore, but I had to keep going because I was contracted. It's a
Yeah.
lot of money on the line. I did like seeing the checks come in, but that was truly the only reward was seeing a check come in. Um,
Mm,
and I was like, I got to do less of this. I can't do all of this. I guess like in the last third of the way, I realized, nah, I can't force myself to do this pace anymore. But I
mm-hmm.
still was doing way too much. And when it
Mm-hmm.
was finally over, instead of the sigh of relief, it was more like the cry of exhaustion. Ah, I wish I was laid out here kind
Let
of
me go lay
deal.
down somewhere. Right.
And I was thinking, oh, all this money I made, I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to be ahead of the curve. I'm going to invest in my business. I'm going to take it to the next level. And the next week, I was like, well, I don't have to do any work anymore. I'll just live off this money for a year. I mean, all of that dreaming
I
and trying to
remember
invest,
this. Yes, I
I was
remember
just
this.
gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is wrong with me? So anyway, that's the first time I realized, because I've always been very ambitious, very like trying to make it happen, trying to get to. I don't think money is everything, but I do think that I'm not where I need to be financially yet, right? So like that comfort level where it's like, okay, if I never have another client, I'll be great. I'm not there, and I want to be there. But at that point, I didn't. I didn't care. I was like, I'll just live off what I have. And if I have to live off the land, so be it. I mean, it was bad. It was bad.
Okay, if you're
Um,
living off the land in DC, you really doing it. Let me tell
I
you.
know, right? I know, right? It's gonna be a little desperate.
It's gonna be a little desperate, friend. Yes, that would have been desperate. So let me ask you this: Were there? So one of the feelings you mentioned was like, I don't know if I was to label it procrastination. Is that I don't know how you would label it, but I'm wondering like what other things were you
Yeah,
feeling during that
it's
time
more,
that
maybe
maybe
it's
were
worse than
signs?
procrastination. For me, there was lethargy, right? There was just a lot
Mhm.
of lethargy.
Okay.
Um, I just, I felt tired.
Hmm.
I felt unenergized. I felt resentful about work that I signed up to do.
Right.
It's like somebody made
Oh,
me do this, even though I had done it to myself, right?
that is real. That when you have too much of it, you're right. Even work, and to your point, in our worlds, you agree to do it. Like you've chosen to do it. It's not even like assigned to you. You've chosen to do it, and still, once you get into it, if you're overwhelmed or it's just too much, yeah, I've been there before. Definitely resentful about it. Like you're mad. You have. It's like I'm mad. I accepted this contract. It's like, well, you accepted it, so yeah.
Yeah,
I
and the professionalism thing kicks in, right? It's like, okay, well, I signed up and my word and I'm like, just because I was crazy at the beginning, should I stay crazy all the way through? But
mean,
I did.
did it
But
affect your personal life too? Like, were there did you see an impact on just, like, friendships or other things personally too, or not as much?
yes, and I'm gonna say, yeah, yeah. So for real, I would say not in terms of having the fun stuff. Like I remember, so like for me, I went and got a counselor because I thought, oh, is this burnout? No, I didn't even think burnout. I was like, I'm depressed. And
Mm.
then when I talked to the counselor, she went through the profile with me. She was like, you don't have depression. It sounds more like burnout. She was like, one of the things she asked me was like, well, now what the fun stuff that you've always enjoyed, do you still do that? And I was like, yep. Like, and like, do I want to go to the movies? Yes,
Oh,
I want to go to the movies. Do you want to go dancing? Yes, I want to go dancing. You want to go eat? Yes, I want to go eat. Do you want to hang out with your friends all the time? Do you want to
yeah.
do any work? Not any of it. Um,
Oh, that's a good distinction, actually, yeah.
so that one for me, but also, and we kind of talked about this before a little bit, but like for sure, when people would ask me for help, I also had no energy for that either. So like any kind of responsibility, any kind of tasking,
Mhm,
I suddenly noticed, definitely for me during my burnout phase, I noticed how many people were asking for more than they were
mhm,
giving. And
mm,
had never been that sensitive to that before in my life. It was like somebody else wanted something.
yeah.
That it's like that was that.
Mhm,
That's not how I ever wanted to evaluate friendships and relationships, right? But that's where I was. I mean, I guess that's because I didn't have anything to give. I didn't. It wasn't. I couldn't give. Even the other piece that I think I know I went through, maybe you went through too, and I bet you a lot of people go through. For me though, disappointment. I was very disappointed in myself. Like
mm,
when opportunities were coming and I was just missing them, or I would do just like 20% of the proposal work that was required because I didn't have the energy to do it. And then it's like, how did you think you were going to get this? What you went in there with?
yeah.
Because I just didn't have the energy to do it. It's like, so I was
Mhm,
just, and I'm a person who usually gets it done and does well. And to not show up not, or show up and not do well, yeah, it was very disappointing. It didn't really help
mhm,
at
yeah,
all. And my counselor gave me some really good advice, I guess. So like I said, the one behavior change I would have made would be, she said, just do what you have to do that day.
mm,
And just focus on just doing the things that you have to do that day. And some of the things I had to come to realization was that, because for me, my list didn't change. My
mhm,
list stayed the same because everything was I have to do that.
yeah,
And then I realized, no, you don't. some of these things you don't have to do. And I think that's the hard part. And it was definitely a hard part for me, was recognizing you're not going to do it all. So,
Mm-hmm.
so what do you have to really do? Well, I got to eat.
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
got to actually pay these bills. Like paying the bills, I was resentful that I had to pay the bills every month. Why can't they go to a yearly process? I'm like everything was a pain for me. Like every task.
Yeah.
Um, I started ordering everything through the Amazon or online because just buying anything was a chore.
Mm-hmm.
So just doing exactly what I had to do was the biggest change I made. I would say, yeah, initially. But I have questions for you.
Yeah.
So for one, so oh, actually, I want to know, when did you recognize that it happened to you? Like when was your experience like with that?
Um, I think the first time and most recent, I'd say both of them, I don't think I recognized it until I was coming out of it, which is kind
Okay.
of interesting. Like when I'm in the midst of it, I'm not very good at recognizing it in the midst of it. I was a little better this last time, but I really knew it when I'm out of it. It's like once I come back to normal, I'm like, whoa, what were you just doing those last 3 months or those last year or whatever? So I think the first time was I was working a corporate job. The job was global. So it had a lot of just time zones, early things, late things, because we were supporting like a global client group.
Hmm.
Um, and I've noticed I really only get burned out. I usually get burned out on things I like. Like it's something I like to do that draws me into it, but over time, I got over engaged in my work, and so I
Hmm.
was just overworking basically for the projects, for um, things we were working on then, things we were building for the next year, things with my team. I loved it all. And it just was I was just really doing too much of it.
Hmm.
And I probably had been in that state for a really long time. Like definitely over a year. I mean, and I was doing things like I remember Kelvin and I were going to my husband, Kelvin and I were going to Mexico for vacation. And I can't remember how many days it was, but I remember saying I can only stay 3 days. Like we got to cut it back. I can't be gone. I just felt like I couldn't be away from it. Like I just for long periods of time. And when I started this business, actually, it's like there's a honeymoon period because I'd left the corporate role. I'm building the business, but it doesn't have as many demands as it will later because it's like I had a couple clients, but not a lot. So I was in this kind of honeymoon period of a lot of space and time. And I think it probably took me 2 to 3 months of being there and thinking, oh my God, is this what normal is? Like, is this what it's like when I'm not burned out, when I'm not like my mind's not going 1 million miles a minute? Um, and I think the biggest thing I noticed in terms of life and impact was I remember just noticing a lot more things about Lauren than I had before, my daughter. Like, it's funny. I think had someone told me before then that I wasn't a great mom, I would have argued you down. Like I would like, you're
Hmm.
crazy
Hmm.
because I was doing all the things. Like I'm showing up at the events, she's involved in things like, there's like all the things I could check off.
Yep.
But there was a nuance about what was really going on with her that I was missing. Like I really wasn't noticing a lot of her strengths that she had that I really wanted to invest in. I wasn't noticing where she was having challenges. Like just it just was a lot of nuance I was really missing out on both with Lauren and with Kelvin actually in my marriage too. That had you told me in the midst of it, I don't think I would have believed you. Like I I would have argued with you about how that was just not true. I literally didn't see it. So it wasn't until coming out of it that I noticed it, and that gave me a chance to kind of reset my normal, like reset.
Mm.
Okay, I was like, I kind of like this, like this being able to notice things and be more present. And yeah, I'm working on different things, but not distracted all the time. Like it just felt so much better that I, that's what I realized. Okay, you were burned out, absolutely. And now that I had this new normal, I just was like, I don't want to go back to that. Like I just, I know I have since then, but at the time, my goal was not to go back to that once I realized, um, once I realized how life could be.
What kind of changes do you put in place to try to make sure you don't go back to it?
I mean, at that time, I did different things this time, so I think I was more aware. But at that time, it was really all like action strategy. So it's like priorities, client management. So I was like not willing to grow my client list to a point where I didn't feel like I could manage it well. I remember I
Mhm.
hired a couple people to help with projects. Like I kind of had a bar now where I was like, if it goes above this in terms of workload, the stress of it, I just wasn't interested in it. I didn't feel like I could say no because I was growing the business, but I knew a few people. So I just started hiring a few people here and there to help on projects,
Yes.
to help with things. Because I wasn't willing to go back to that really intense, distracted, like 150% in. I just didn't want it anymore. So I was managing it mainly by priorities, workload management, client management, like that kind of stuff. I probably had more resource in the beginning than I even needed, but it was because I was so scared of going back to what I had experienced before.
But you said the first time, so that's what I call it. You said like the first time I got burned
Mhm.
out. So now, what? How did you get burned out again?
I said yes to too many things. And it was again all things I love. It was I
Hmm.
loved them all. There wasn't anything that I said yes to that I didn't really enjoy and love. But I I said yes to too much. So I just over time that volume of work increased. I was now working way too many hours. It was intense. I was distracted. Like all those feelings started to come back. And it's generally through it's like my own curiosity, my own interest, my own ambition when
Hmm.
not managed well, my own ambition. Like those are the things that draw me into burnout. It's like, come on, Arlene, let's do one more thing. Let's sign up for one more. And I'm like, yes, let's do it.
Like that was you know the little devils on the shoulder. You can do
You
it. Don't worry about
can do
burning
it.
out.
You can do it. This is for you. Like, and I yesed myself into basically too many responsibilities. And so I wasn't there as long, but I definitely got back there before. I mean, so as you think about like your experiences, like, do you think that things that led you into burnout were controllable or no? Like, are these things, was it like things you could have prevented, or was it just life circumstances? Like, was it controllable? Do you think you could have done something different?
Yeah, yeah. So that's how I see the world anyway. So I never think I don't have some control, some control.
Okay.
So absolutely, there were things I could have done. I could have renegotiated my deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I could have brought on more people and decided to make less money
Mm,
sooner than I did, and not taking all the work and all the money for myself.
yeah.
Um, I could have subcontracted some of that work out. I could have done more intentional vacations. Funny thing. So for me, as I guess, and now that I look at it in review, as I was going through some of the early stages of the burnout, people would be like asking, like family and friends would be asking me to do things with them that I felt were not fun and more chore like.
Okay.
And so I'd be like, I have just too much work to do. I'm sorry, I can't do that. So I would use work as an excuse to avoid other work.
Uh-huh.
What I probably should have said no to the work as well and just been intentional about like, I'm going to take this weekend off. I'm going to
Mm,
have a start and a stop time. All of that stuff was out of the window for me because I was just trying to make the goals and shine, right? And
mhm.
yeah, I could have cared a little bit less about shine and a little bit more about like let's do a good quality job. Let's get a B plus here,
Yeah.
in this case because knowing that client, I now know that I made it a bigger deal than they did. They
Yeah.
ever will. You know that part. So I could have gotten a little more realistic about that.
Uh-huh.
Um, I give myself credit for reaching out to you, but I was already probably way down the burnout track before I reached out to you and like, hey, do you know anybody who could help?
Mhm.
I probably could have done all of that sooner. And I let the client suggest deadlines. And I was
Mm,
like, and I have a challenge with recognizing all the little steps when
mhm.
I'm planning out projects. So
Yeah.
I'll be like, yeah, that sounds doable.
Mhm.
Um, I know how to do it, but still, I minimize how long it's going to take and things like that. And I probably
Right.
should have just renegotiated, if you will.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
said like, here I'm realizing that this probably needs to be pushed back by this much time. And
Mhm.
haven't worked with that client before. They probably just said yes, but I didn't want, again, me, I was my biggest
Yes.
problem there. I was like, no, I don't, I'm just going to make it happen.
Yeah.
Um, so those are things I could have done differently. I think also, beyond the work, I probably should have only done like about 20% of that work, maybe just managed it. Because like I said, I hated that work.
Hmm.
I can't even say I guessed myself into something that I loved. I guessed myself into something I didn't like. Um,
Yeah.
so there was that. I did like the people though. I did like working with the people I've worked with.
Hmm.
In the beginning, I mean, there were times where just because I was so overworked, I didn't like anybody, right? But for the
Yeah.
most part, I liked the client, and so yeah, those are the things I see that I could have done immediately differently. I wish I had actually even got some help for myself or talked to somebody sooner,
Hmm. Yeah.
so that I could recognize the burnout sooner, so I could have changed my behaviors earlier,
Hmm.
instead of just ignoring that I'm tired, ignoring that I'm overworking.
Yeah.
My a big symptom I had, or a big sign for me that I just ignored. People who I like to talk to would call me, and I'm like, "Oh, hey!" And when they got past 2 minutes of
Hmm.
talking,
Yeah.
I was annoyed. Like, how long you
Like
gonna talk?
I got things to do, people, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that, yeah, yeah. Another sign of resentment. I was resentful of my friends and family calling me in the middle of the day to talk for 2 minutes. How crazy is that, right? That's when you know you
I
got to
don't have
talk to
time
them.
for this. Right. Yeah.
Exactly,
Uh-huh.
right? If you were to ask me what's the most important thing in my life, I'd be like my family and my friends. And
Mm,
yet, I'm mad because they called me for 2 minutes in the middle of the day. That's a sign for me that
right.
I ignored.
That's a good one. I mean, that's a really good one. Like when you're what you value is that when there's a mismatch between what you like, what you say you value and what you know you value with
Hmm.
your actions, that's probably another good sign that there's something going on here. That's
Yeah, something's going on
pulling me
here.
away
Yeah.
from what I care about the most, so and I could see what you're saying about the doing more than is expected. I've done a couple things for clients before. Like one stands out for me that we had done a coaching engagement and I like summarized the data that was the evaluation afterward. And we probably went way deeper than what they ever expected. Because I remember they were like, wow, we didn't, this is great. Like, we, but it was almost like you over delivered. You know what I mean? Which and sometimes that's good, but sometimes you've just actually added a whole bunch of work to yourself that you really didn't need to. Like I could tell they were like, "Whoa," like almost like this was too much. Like I didn't you could have just given me a one pager that said it went great. Like they really didn't want all the nitty-gritty. So yeah, I think sometimes we kind of put it on ourselves when really it's not even expected or sometimes even valued. Like I think they would have preferred a one pager, honestly, than what they got from us. So it's like yeah, there's something about being clear on what the expectations are, what people really need. Yeah, yeah, for
But
sure.
what were your expectations of you? Because I feel like a lot of times it's us, right? It's like our own inner stuff that's causing
Mhm.
us to drive ourselves to burnout.
Oh yeah, it was definitely my own personal expectations, and I mean, when I look back even on that experience and say, especially the first time, could I have controlled it? It's a lot I could have controlled, absolutely. Like how I was doing the work, what work I was signing me and our team up for. It was a lot I could have controlled. But in other ways, it wasn't controllable because I don't think I was self-aware enough.
Mm,
Like, could somebody have controlled it? Yes. Could I have controlled it at that moment?
fair,
Pro-
fair.
Probably not, because I didn't even have the self-awareness that I was burned out. Like, it wasn't until I
Yeah.
left that I was like, wow, that was crazy. I can't believe you were doing that. You were staying up till this hours of night, taking these calls all day and night. Like, it just was ridiculous. Cutting your vacation short, it was so many things that were ridiculous when I look back on it. But during the time, it was controllable in a lot of ways, but I don't think by me. Like I was not in a place that I wasn't self-aware enough to control it.
Yeah, I get that. I see that. For me, um, I think a lot of the values I hold are actually what caused the burnout, right? So I hold myself accountable
Mhm.
for certain things, and I
Mhm.
think that's what's driving me a lot of times. Like I loathe incompetence. Like I hate it. Like if I see a McDonald's worker or the garbage man or my plumber or barber, any of the people, and I doesn't care what you do, whatever your profession is, do it
Mhm.
well, right?
Mhm.
Um, and especially leadership, because if you're leading people, you're responsible for them. So, I feel the same way for me, right?
Mhm.
And there's just a confidence meter in my head going off like, that's not acceptable. It needs to be like this. It needs to be like this, which is
Yeah.
always has one more task and one more standard to make
Mhm.
happen. And I'm always looking to see if it's good enough. Is this good enough? Is this
Mhm.
good enough? And I think that drives sometimes the burnout too, because like, it is good enough, but you're not looking for good enough, Brian. You're
Right.
looking for perfection, right? So
Right.
that part, right?
Uh-huh.
My good enough meter is off, right? It's not in line. It's like, like it's like the speedometer that's out of whack, right? And it's telling you you're
Mhm.
going 30, but you're going 80. That's
Yes.
kind of how I am. I'm looking for like checking my own good enough meter, and it's always off.
Mhm.
But also, I think I still have a little bit of the imposter syndrome going on, right? Where it's like
Mhm.
I still have something to prove to myself in terms of like I hear the voice in my head when I left my good job. And
Mhm.
they're
Right.
like, and you're gonna go and start your own business? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. And they're like, and what do you think your pop's gonna accomplish is better than this job?
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to prove to myself, right? And I
Uh,
think in doing that, that's a little bit of it too. It's like I still have something to prove, and I don't think I'm trying to prove it to them, but to me, like, oh, I can do this.
yeah.
Um, and this job is going to get you to the next job, to the next job, to the next job, which on my track is going to get me to burnout.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
I think that internal drive, I'm always fighting that, right? That whole drive to achieve,
Mhm.
the drive to not be incompetent, and then the other one is more selfless. I think is I genuinely like a lot of the work we do that we get lucky to do as IM psychologists and coaches, where we're helping. And
Yes.
so for me, it's not at all unusual for me to go beyond for one of my
Mhm.
coaching,
Yes.
the people I'm coaching.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they'll say something to me, and I'm like, I think I know some articles that could help you. And I'll spend hours researching
Mhm.
stuff to how to help them. I'm like, I think I've gone a little too far here. And sometimes they'll be like, wow, I didn't expect to get all this. Thank you. And I'm like, I probably did too much here. But once you are actually coaching somebody, and
Yeah.
you know things are out there that can help them, you want to get it to them. You know what I mean? And that's a little
Mhm.
responsibility. And I get a lot of joy out of helping them too, but it's still
I
like, you know
do.
what? Balance. There's got to be
Mhm.
some balance there. And maybe they don't need to get 20 sessions worth out of your two
Yes.
sessions. That part.
Yeah.
So some of it, a lot of it is just me, for sure. What about you? What do you think is in you that's driving the burnout to come back?
Yeah, I think it's I love change. I love new things. I love helping. Um it's the things I enjoy. Like that's definitely
Hmm.
what leads me there is the things I really enjoy doing. And it's a bit of, when you're doing new things is what I find. So I think I'm pretty good at estimating time, resources for work I know. But when you're doing new things, and I like a lot of new things, when you're doing new things, it's very hard to estimate that, so I feel like
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
the fall when I taught that class, I had already laid out, okay, here's when I'm going to prep for the class, here how long the class is going to take. Like I kind of had laid out my schedule to manage it, and it still took more than I thought, because the first time you do something, it's really hard to predict it from a timing, resources, energy. I think I kind of predicted the timing maybe a little bit, but I underestimated the energy it takes to teach a
Yeah.
3-hour class. Like I thought I was going to teach that class and then go have client meetings. No. After that client meeting, the best I could do was answer emails or do some administrative things. But this idea of like teaching this 3-hour class, then showing up present with a client,
Yeah.
mm-mm. So I think it's this kind of interest in new things that pulls me into things that then are harder to manage. And kind of underestimating how much it takes to do something new, like something that's totally different, totally new. Podcast, similar thing, the book, similar thing. Like it's kind of easy to underestimate those things.
For you said the energy and the time thing, and that's the one that's key for me too, because like, um, well, I'm terrible at estimating time.
Mhm,
Um, but the energy is much more important for me than the time anyway, because like
mhm.
if it takes me a little bit of time, but it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
and it drains me or it pulls a lot, it's like, wow, okay, I can't. It doesn't matter that I have time to do it. I don't have the
Right.
energy to do it.
You don't want to do it. Right. Exactly.
And
Because you
I think
don't.
I
Hmm.
know I underestimate sometimes how much energy it's going to take, and sometimes you can't even tell.
Hmm.
For instance, for me, I have had clients that are surprised. Like I'll agree to do something, and I know the leader, but then
Hmm.
when I get with the leadership team, it's like, oh,
This is
y'all
different.
are requiring a lot more energy from me to
Yeah.
manage and to get this done. And I'll be exhausted after, and I will have to schedule a meeting with the leader after it to talk about how it went. And I'm like, we need to reschedule this. Now that's what I do. I'll be like, we need to reschedule the meeting after the meeting.
Right.
And I'm thinking of one client. He was like, yeah, me too. Yeah, I don't know why we thought
They're
we'd be
like,
able to
thank
do this
God.
afterwards. Yeah.
Like we're
Let's talk
both worn
tomorrow.
out. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
I love that you said the energy piece because I think a lot of us forget
Hmm.
that's the other resource, right? That we just manage our time. And it's like, yeah, but is that time quality time? And I think the
Yes.
energy is what makes it the quality, right? Like,
Hmm.
I also think underestimate how much the duties outside of work affect us, right? That those are
Yeah.
responsibilities.
Hmm.
Um, well, I got a group coaching client right now, and she talks a lot about church and community responsibilities that weigh her down. And I was like,
Hmm.
yeah. Um, I see that. And then I personally like there's family commitments and things. It's like, you know
Hmm.
what? This is just take my whole arm there. How about that?
And those are like important to you. So you don't want to not
Yes,
do them. You don't want to
exactly.
give your good energy to them. You don't want to show up to them like, whoo, I'm here.
Yes,
Like you want to
exactly.
you want to show up well to those too. So yeah, you're right. That's the other thing sometimes
And
we neglect to consider.
and people feel that whole part you just said, right? Like the whole like I'm here. Feel like people can feel your energy, like when you give them their time without the energy. And who wants that leftover? I don't want to be here. Kind of energy, right?
Nobody, family, nobody wants that really. I mean,
Yeah,
especially your family, really. Your clients don't want it either, but your family and friends don't want that either. So yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
So that I was there, and what I try to do not to get there anymore is I do try to say no. I try to say no a lot more. I try to get other people to do the work
Yeah.
when I need to. Like, hey, who can subcontract? I can subcontract. Who can I subcontract this to so that I don't have to do it? And I have new goals for myself now. Um,
Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about like I guess two sides. One is like how you recovered from it initially, and then the other side I guess is like how do you stay recovered? Like do you have new things that keep you from getting there maybe than what you'd had before?
um,
So first like how did you
yeah.
recover? Like what did
How
you
did I recover? So for me, like I said, I got a counselor. The counselor was helpful, and she dropped me because she said you don't really have depression and you have burnout, and this is what you need to do. So we met for like 3 sessions, and
Okay.
that was helpful. And then we realized it was no longer. She was like, "Does this really help you anymore?" I was like, "It feels like one more thing to do."
Mm, yeah.
She's like, I say she dropped me, but we agreed that probably I got what I needed, and that felt like one more appointment.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
but I really just cut back. I cut back on everything. I cut back on all obligations that felt like obligations, and only
Hmm.
tried to do the things that felt like fun, or the things those were her advice. Doing just
Hmm.
the pieces that I had to do.
Yeah.
What work do I have to do? What things do I have to do each day that are going to keep me able to pay my bills and be able
Hmm.
to stay healthy? That and I did that, and it took me months. I did it for months. Like I want to say I discovered it in January, in the middle of January, that I was burned out, and I got my energy back in May. um yeah,
Yes,
that's what
I
happened to
that's
me.
what's shocking. Like that was my experience too. When I look back on it, I was like, I think it took me like somewhere between 3 and 6 months to really reset for real and get back to normal. Like it took me 2 months to just rest and come out of it and realize what I'd been through. And then it took me another few months to kind of reset life and priorities and all those kind of things. So I said the same thing. I was like, I think it probably took 3 to 6 months, like when I went through it before, and even recently, I would say it took about the same time. Like
Okay.
it takes a while to kind of it takes longer than I think most of us think. Like I said, a lot of times people think, oh, I'll go on vacation for, 2 days. That might help, but if those same responsibility, like all the same things are there in your life when you get back, it's like
Yeah,
now what you gonna do? Like, so
Yeah.
I think it takes longer than a lot of us think.
Now available. You deserve to love your job. How to find your purpose and enjoy your life. You may not have learned this growing up, but you deserve to love your job. You will spend more time at work than in any other activity in your life, and you deserve to love it. Research tells us that people who love their work are twice as likely to enjoy their life. This book will help you create a blueprint to help you fulfill your purpose, love your job, and live the life you were designed to live. Now available at Amazon.
Did you get any bad advice along the way? I got bad advice along the way from like
Like what?
people who thought they understood it. I won't say who said them because they're probably gonna watch, but
That's
like
probably best. Let's
but
go with
I
that.
got
Yeah.
advice from some friends and they were like, well, you're making good money, aren't you? You can do it.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
that's helpful.
Okay.
Or everybody has bad days, and so you got sometimes you just gotta work hard to make it work. Or I remember someone saying, whatever, that's what it is to be an entrepreneur. You got to just work hard. I'm like, I mean, that
Yes.
may be true, and it's not helpful. Um, I got some of that, or you should just party hard on the weekends. Work hard, play hard. I got that right.
Work
I was
hard,
like,
play hard. Oh, that's
work hard, play
okay.
hard,
Yes.
work
Uh-huh.
hard, play hard. And then I got people who would just say some smart things too. I got some smart things too. They were like, hire somebody to help you do some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was like, yeah. But I have a personal fear that like I'm gonna hire people and take them away from a good permanent job. Um,
Oh, uh-huh.
and then what if I can't keep them on? Like I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to protect them maybe a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I got some really silly advice that wasn't helpful. Like just push through. I got stuff like that was like, you know what? Yeah, talking to you is not helpful.
I think I told myself that a lot. Like this is just I was thinking about something so people told me too, but I think the thing that I told myself when I was in, especially when I didn't realize it, was like, this is just what working hard is. Like, you're
Mm,
paid well for your work. Like, I didn't recognize the burnout because I thought this is what working adults do. We work a lot, and I was surrounded by a lot of people who were also burned out, um, and not recognizing it. So it's just like, this is how we work. Like, this is normal to a certain extent. So my normal was so intense that I think, like I think I labeled it working hard, like which was I thought was a very positive value, which I still think is a positive value, but it was really overworking. But I labeled it as like this is hard work. So when I talk to people, they're like, yeah, I was late, working late too. It was almost like a badge of honor, I think, for most of the people that I spent time
mm.
with. They were like, yeah, I was up on that 5 a.m. call and I got,
I know those
300
people.
emails today. And I mean, it was almost like a sign of importance, if I probably true. Like it felt like a sign of importance that we were needed and we were working hard and like there were so many demands on us and people needed so much from us. Like for me and the people I was working with and my team, I think we I don't think we saw it as like a bad thing. It was like, this is what we do. Like we work
I have a
hard.
lot
This
of
is who
clients
we are.
who do that. I have so many clients who I've talked to about that.
Yeah.
Um, that I call it addicted to A plus. They're just always on go, right? But with that said, I didn't get that I was doing it at the time too. Like I was pretty impressed with myself that I'm so
Yeah.
busy and I
Yes.
have so
I'm
much to
so
do
busy. There
and
you
I'm
go.
making so much money
Yeah.
and I have clients I can't even take on. I was feeling, what is it, feeling myself, right?
Yes.
Um, but
Honestly,
I'm
even as I
breaking.
just talked about it, I was getting excited. Like I was talking about like,
See?
there's something to that. Like there's something addictive about it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, well, well, like you said, it's like the stuff that you want to do makes it even better. And in my case, it was the abundance of like, for me, like the business is thriving,
Yes.
but on my back. You know what I mean?
We're paying the price for it, but yes, it
Yeah,
felt like we're doing
exactly.
things. Like our team's
Yeah.
getting recognized. Like we're out there making it happen. So Yeah, there's some of it that is it is bad advice, but I was probably giving the same bad advice to other people. I was like, yeah, we work hard. Like that's who we are. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't think it's. I don't. I never did a sustainability check at any point, right? Like, is this sustainable? I was more worried about the work's not going to get done than I was.
Yes.
I continue to work at this pace, right? I
Mhm.
was more concerned about the work than I was about me.
Yeah. Yes. I would agree with that. Yes.
As I say that, it makes me sad a little bit, right? It's like,
Yes, I
wow,
agree.
that's not good.
It's not good, and it's where, but I definitely have been there before, and I feel like it's where a lot of people are. It's like you do think more about the work than you do about yourself, and if the work is getting done, you use that as a way of feeling good about yourself because the work is
hmm
good, I'm good. When
hmm
reality is that may not be true. The work might be good, and you may not be good at all. Your family
Yeah,
relationships may not be good at all. Your health may not be good at all. But if the work, because we have so much of our identity wrapped up in the work, it's like if the work is good, I'm good. Like I think that's
yeah.
absolutely where I was for years.
Okay.
Absolutely years. The one piece of only thing I think is not bad advice, but the only thing I struggle with advice from other people is not a lot of people understand entrepreneur world, I think, and
Yeah.
especially if you're working like virtually from home a lot, like they kind of think you're whining, I think. Like it's almost like, oh, oh, you're burned out. Like I don't know. It's almost like a doubtfulness about the idea that that can happen because you have so much choice, you have so much control. I don't know. That's the other thing I picked up on people. Like if I'd say, "Oh my God, I'm so busy," they'd be like, "That's good, right? I mean, you're not. Don't you need to work?" Like it just there's a little bit of I don't know what it is doubtfulness that it's even a
No,
thing. I don't know.
I know exactly what you mean because I remember being like I felt complaining about my situation. And this person was like, "Yeah, you just bragging." No, no, I'm really. What are you talking about? Like, I
Right?
really was not. I was like feeling the effects of the
Yes.
burnout, like in the situation, recognizing the situations leading into it. And they were like, "Now you're
Yes.
just bragging. You get to work from home." And I was like, actually, I kind of miss being around other people. I miss
Zero empathy. Yes. I even feel
having
like
to
that in
do
my
all of this
corporate
by
job.
myself.
Yeah, I kind of like that in my corporate job too, because you're like you're paid well and it's like, you're flying places, which seems like when you don't do it, business travel can seem like, oh wow, so tough. You had to go to,
That's
like this.
exactly it. Yes. Yes. I'm like, I was complaining about. I was like, I had to go to blah blah blah, and now I got to go to so and so. And in general, I like travel for work,
Right. Uh-huh.
but some of the places were not fun places. Um,
Exactly. And you're
and I didn't
working.
always even feel safe in the places. And on top of it, it was like turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around. And when I go home tonight, I want to do some work and not see anything in this
Exactly.
place. I may sit at the hotel bar and do work, right?
Right.
And I was like, and they were like, oh, you just bragging now. I'm like,
Like that's how it feels like you're just so I think it's hard to like know the context of someone else's life. You know what I mean? To
hmm
like
hmm
hear them describe it. And a lot of times if it's different from yours, it doesn't feel bad. Like it feels like that doesn't sound bad to me. Like so I think a lot of times we kind of
good point.
we're not really empathetic for other people's context. Like it can,
hmm
because a lot of times just something different feels better. So I
And I
yeah,
love that you said it that way because that gives me a little bit more hope for my circle that maybe that's why they felt that way. No, honestly, I totally get it. That's where I said the misery of those company. Are they? I was not happy that you burned out, but a little bit of me was like, someone understand. You know what I mean? Like
right.
that
Yes.
part because it's similar when you're an entrepreneur, especially since we do the same type of work. It's just really
Yes.
like
Mhm.
somebody else that understands. I think
Mhm.
we all just want to be understood to some degree, right? Like
Yes.
what's going on in our world. And so yeah, I totally was like, yes, at least there's somebody who understands. And then I realized actually there's too many people that understand. This is really a bad problem at this point.
Oh yeah.
Um,
It's a challenge for a lot of people. Like so I mean, I guess what have you done to keep you out of it? Like do you have any new things you've put in place? Like one there was recovery, but is there anything like have you experienced it recently again? Like, is there,
Oh,
like
I
what's different
haven't.
about your life? Okay, you haven't.
I
Okay.
haven't, but I have empowered my team. I call my team, my board of directors, whatever you want to call it. Like I have a group of people in my life who I lean on for different things. Like some people know some things I don't know, personal things, professional things, business things. But I kind of picked a few of them and I asked them to like keep me honest in terms of like, remember I talked about that meter I have, right? So it's like, hey,
Yes.
am I working too hard? Am I missing out on life stuff? And so they kind of keep
Mm,
me they pull me to the side and they'll call me and they'll be like, hey, so you kind of canceled 3 times on this thing here. What's going on? And I'll
mm,
be like, well, I got work to do. And they'll be like, but work and money is not everything.
mm.
That's true. And I'll go back to trying to get it done anyway. So, but I got to get this done now. And they'll be like, but you said to
Right.
remind you,
Yes.
So I pick really people who don't
Mm,
mind. I didn't pick anybody who's non-confrontational. I pick people who don't mind confrontation because I can ignore you for a little bit and try to go back to my
mm,
automatic state of getting it done. But I empower people around me to help me out and pay attention to me. And that's the biggest thing I think for sure. Um,
mm,
and then um, I'm working with better. I'm working with people better for me to work with. I won't say better people, but better people for me to work with. So,
mm,
so like working with you is
mm,
helpful because now that I know we're both looking out for the same experience, if you just mention your experience, it reminds me.
mhm,
Let me make sure A, I'm not asking you to do too much. B, I'm not asking me to do too much.
mhm,
And how do we need to scale this and how do we need to time this so
mhm,
that we're not contributing to more burnout, right?
mhm,
Um, I also, like you said, I recognize that I just schedule things poorly. So I actually asked my clients, because I have a lot of clients who I've worked with for a while. Okay, so this is what I figured out, but when do you actually need this? Because a lot of times things come up. Is this pushing it? Is this tight? Because my clients, I found out I was pushing things so tightly. They'd be like, "Ooh, this feels tight, but we'll do whatever you need." I was actually burning my clients out
Oh,
trying to
that's
make it
good
so
to
tight.
know. Yeah.
So I'd ask them now, like, so when do you really need this? And do we have space in here that I should be adding? And they're like,
Mhm,
well, I would like a little more time to review it here. And I would like, and so I kind of and empower them to help me with some of that stuff too, especially the ones who I've worked with a lot, because they already know
mhm.
my tendency. I'll be having them working fast. And they'd be like,
Right.
it's a lot.
Right.
So they help me now too. So all of that, those are all things that I try to do. I also book myself. So like for all of my coaching clients who might be watching, sometimes you can call me and I may free up some time for you because I've actually booked it for myself. So I book a lot more of my time to think,
Mhm,
um, to evaluate what's going on in my life and coach myself and
mhm,
sometimes just to walk.
mhm,
So I'm doing a lot more of that downtime in my day
mhm,
um, so that I don't burn out. So those are, I think, all the ones that I have. Um, The final one, I guess I would say, is the biggest one for me is just making sure that more of my stuff is joy based. Because like before,
mm,
like I told you, yours is you enjoyed yours, and that's why you over invest. For me, I think I burn out more quickly when it's stuff that I'm using just straight discipline to force myself, empower myself through.
mhm.
So I make sure that I say no more to the stuff that I don't enjoy, and I
Mhm,
say just appropriately to the stuff that I do enjoy.
mhm.
And I try to use the confidence meter in a different way too, which is most of my stuff is mental, by the way. So if you can't tell now, most of my shit is kind of mental.
Yeah.
But I try to reprogram what confidence is, right? So confidence is since I know it's still high for me, like I got to deliver high, be highly confident. I do the whole math in my head by like, okay, so if I overwork and I overcommit, what's the likelihood that my work's gonna be crap? So
Mm,
that helps me pull back. So like if I
mhm,
say no to more, I can actually deliver at a highly confident level. So that's where I
mhm.
am now. That's always a struggle though. It's a struggle because it's the struggle of having a successful business and taking on work
Yeah.
um, versus being happy and not crazy and not burned out. And so that's the constant struggle. What about you? What are you doing to stay even keel and not burned out?
Mhm. I feel like this time, so experiencing it more recently, because I experienced it at the end of last year. One, I picked up on it a lot faster. So I wasn't like unaware of it for years, like I was before. So I picked up on it faster. And I was
Wait, wait,
looking.
wait. You were burned out for years?
Oh yeah, at least
Oh,
the first time it was at least 18 months, probably more
okay.
like 2 years. I was just over engaged. But this time, so I was looking back, I'm more in touch with how I'm feeling. I think part of it is what you're saying. Like I have more space for reflection kind of built into my life. So like when I
Mm-hmm.
first started the business and I was like, I'm not going back to what I was before. I started with like a day every month that I used to like I blocked a day on my calendar every month to review the business. And
Mm-hmm.
because I was trying to make a certain amount of money financially. So part of it was driven by that, but also just review my life and like how am I feeling? Like I just didn't want to go back. So I kind of instituted these regular reflection points that force me to
Mm-hmm.
like really evaluate, kind of get on top of my life and say, is this working well or is there a problem? Um, and I don't do that as much as I used to, although I feel like when I was preparing for this, I was like, I need to go back to that. Actually, that was good. But I do have just more daily reflection things. So like my morning, I have a morning routine that I kind of use, which is like prayer, reflection,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
reading the Bible. I now take a Sabbath every Sunday. So we go to church, but then I really try, not to work stuff or personal stuff on Sunday. So it's like another downtime. Um, I journal more. So I was looking through this because I was like, because I really was burned out toward the end of 2023. And I was looking back on my notes and I was like, okay, did you know it? Like, I was curious. I don't write in it every day, but like sometimes I do. So I was looking back on end of 2023. And one thing I wrote, which I thought was interesting, was that I was one entry that was in kind of later 2023, looking back on earlier. I wrote, looking back at the last entry is a reminder how quickly feelings can change. Like reading it today seems foreign to me. So I was reading something how I felt before, and I was like, this seems foreign to me. I don't even remember feeling that way. And so
Right.
one thing I wrote is like you have to ride the wave of emotions sometimes. They can come and go. Um, and I wrote down a scripture, Proverbs 28:26, which is like, whoever trusts in his own mind is a fool, but he who walks with wisdom will be delivered. And what I remember taking from that is like when you're burned out, you almost can't even trust your own thoughts. Like, because at this time, like I was like, maybe I need to retire. Like I was like, I might need to just like maybe I need to do something different with this business. But when you're really tired, overwhelmed, stressed out, like you can't even necessarily trust the thoughts you have in that moment because
Mm.
they're so driven by the emotions you're feeling that you're not even having your thoughts may not be as clear as you want them to be. And so you can make some decisions that if you weren't burned out, you might not make. I mean, so kind of this emotional management. But one thing I noticed at the end of 2023, I wrote down you're ending on fumes. So I knew at the end of 2023, I was like, listen, you have done too much. Like you're ending on fumes. You barely making it out of this year. So I think this reflection time helps me just notice it more. I don't get there quite as much because I reflect way more than I used to. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Mm-hmm.
when it starts to tick up, I can kind of be like, whoa, 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 like I can feel this, do something different. Um, and I think I just have more language for it now. Like I'm no longer calling it hard work. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you're burning out. Like that's so I think that helps me to just recognizing it, the language around it, more reflection, um, more just times of balance in my life in general helps me to not get there and certainly to notice it and come back more quickly.
Do you notice a consistent, have you been able to notice a consistent feeling as it's happening, like that's driving you to go for it, say the yes or say the go for it or stay in it? For me, it's guilt. Guilt is a driver for me that as we were talking, I discovered for me, I feel guilty. One of the things I thought to do when I was making good money and working myself to death, I was like, I don't have time to cut this grass. I don't have time to clean this house. I'm going to hire people to do that.
Mhm.
And in the back of my head, it was, who do you think you are? You're too
What are
good
you,
to
the
cut your
king of
grass.
England?
Yeah, that's that.
What are you,
You're
the
too good to
queen of
clean up
England?
yourself. You're too good to cook your own food. You're too good to cut your grass. Turns out, by the way, that I'm allergic to grass, so that's the reason I hated cutting it so much. Well, I didn't know it at the time. But yeah, so it was the whole guilt, like I felt guilty if I didn't stay working and doing everything. Like I was
Yes.
like I to not do it meant to think that I was too good to do it for some reason. It's like,
Hmm.
or you may just don't maybe not have that energy anymore, or maybe your time
Yes.
could be dedicated to something else that you're better at or more suited for. But nope, I need to do all of it, or else I think I'm too good. That was what was playing in my head. So I got enormous guilt for not saying yes to certain things. That was one for me. Did you have anything like that or anything similar?
That is so interesting. Yes, I would say I can identify with the guilt. And I think my guilt is like the guilt of not feeling productive enough. So this
Hmm.
whole concept of your value is in what you do and what you produce, which, I remember watching, I don't know if you've seen that Encanto movie by Lin-Manuel
I
Miranda.
haven't. I heard it, but I didn't see it.
Oh my God. I got a whole epiphany in Encanto because the theme
Wait, is that
is
the
like,
cartoon movie?
oh yes, it's a cartoon movie. I have a whole set of notes I might pull out when we get to our closing comments as I'm just thinking about this based on that movie. But the theme of the movie is basically like you're valuable because you're a person. It's not about what you contribute to,
Absolutely.
like it's not your contribution, it's not your productivity. But that absolutely is something I think about. So like, yeah, I feel, even though like in this business I work on the weekends, I work in the evenings, but if I'm not working by a certain time in the morning and it's like 4 or 3, and I'm like, but especially before, I've gotten better at this, but and it's like, oh, I need to go do something different. I'm thinking, you can't, like, it's not even 5. It's not even it's not even 5:36. Like I would feel guilty about not being productive. Like, and
Yeah.
so that kind of drove me into always being productive and basically measuring my value and identity through how much I produce, whether it's financial, whether it's clients saying, "Oh, that was so great and amazing." Like anything that gave me signals of productivity and value, that will drive me to say yes to a whole lot of stuff I probably shouldn't.
Hmm.
So I think it is a guilt. It's just a guilt of like, shouldn't you be doing something? Like, shouldn't you be doing something? I literally have 2 spa gift cards and I love the spa. Let me tell you, I love the spa. I have 2 of them sitting on my desk that people have given me that I have yet to use because in my mind, sometimes I'm like, I mean, you could go to the spa, but like if you didn't, you could think about what you could get done for the podcast. I mean, think about what you could get done for this. So I think the guilt, it may come from a different place, but guilt, yes, that has driven me into a lot.
I feel the one you just said though. Like for me, I could be enjoying my day for an hour. I might go to the grocery store and look and see what produce they have. I'm going to the farmer's market, or I might just go get a Slurpee because I like Slurpees, or get
Yeah.
some coffee at Starbucks. And I'll be like, I will break out in a panic almost like, what should I be doing? I should probably be doing something right now. Something I got to be doing. What am I forgetting to do?
Why are you
It's like,
wasting your time at the produce section?
there's always something that needs to be done. I think
Uh,
that's when I first started for me way back. Dissertation.
mm,
For me, it started way back then, and it was like the constant. I don't have the right to watch TV for 30 minutes because my dissertation's not done.
Ryan, that could be the traumatic event that spurred a lot of this, like some kind of a yes, because that, and honestly, I used to carry my books everywhere. Like Kelvin and I were going to dinner, and I was like, "Well, I brought my book, so in case he got up for a few minutes, I'd be like, let me, can I read an article in this next 5 minutes?" You're right. That's yes,
I had my laptop and my research with me for I think 3 straight years.
yes, exactly.
I
You're
had it so
right.
much that people started asking me what was in it. Right?
They didn't
They
care
already knew.
anymore. They,
They already
and they
knew.
did
It's like, this
care.
is dissertation.
This dissertation he's never going to finish. Like, that's how. Oh, I hadn't thought about that, but that could be
I
yes.
wonder if we have a civil suit in the making. That's a class action against dissertations.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes. I mean,
But
but that guilt, I think that's something really for everyone to think about, which is like, is there a like what's driving it that leads you into this and the guilt around productivity. I could be doing something. I know for some people it's the guilt of like making more money, like maybe they came from a poverty background and they're like, I don't want to go back there, even though they're nowhere close to going back there. They feel like, oh, I gotta do, it's like a lot of those emotions can drive us into, wanting to please. Like it's a lot of emotions that can drive us into these behaviors that really are not good for us. And honestly, if we really were to evaluate it, it's not good for the people we're serving either. Kind of
I
showing
agree.
up just
Agree.
overworked, distracted, like it's not good for them either. But if we're not cognizant, it's really easy to be there.
I always think about like so like for me, there's the guilt. For me, there's guilt around family and friends too. Like I should be doing this. All the shoulds, right? All the shoulds.
Yeah.
Like, and I think about like people who think I have a family member who has a home help aide for their mom,
Hmm.
and there's the guilt that they go to work and they can't take care of their mom in the morning before they go to work.
Oh,
You know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
because you're going to be two people now.
Right.
But there's like I should no, a stranger shouldn't be doing this for my mom. A stranger shouldn't be doing this for my dad.
Yeah.
Um, there's so much guilt and an obligation and beating yourself up. And I think even when we don't get it accomplished,
Hmm.
it's still wearing and it's still there. It just feels like a failure that's on us. So
The
all of that
weight.
too.
Hmm.
Yeah, the weight of it. I got friends who are like, so I didn't go to PTA meetings. And I was like, most people don't go to PTA meetings, but I have two kids at the school. Most people don't go to PTA meetings. We have two kids at the school.
They sure don't.
But
I've been to some. Trust me, they don't.
the weight, and
Yeah.
and they're trying to do it all. And it's like, I wonder if the people at the PTA wish you weren't there because you just nasty, because you had so much stuff to do. So,
The bad attitude at the PTA meeting, right? Wouldn't you do better just taking a nap? Wouldn't you?
yeah, that part. And for me, I learned, like I said, I was chasing money.
Hmm.
And money was a proxy for success, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
I was really chasing success,
Hmm.
and what I actually found out was that the I can't say it was an epiphany because it was not quick, or sudden, right?
Hmm.
The slow insight was that, and chasing that success and that money nonstop for that year or 14 months, I actually lost a whole lot more money on the back end because I wasn't able to work for 5 months or barely able to work for 5 months.
Yeah.
And so I would have done better to work in balance. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that's the piece that got here now. That got here now. It's like, okay, um, it helped me make the transition. And I'm not going to sit up here and say that I'm not subject to fall into that again. So, because I haven't had the opportunity to have a project like that when it's stuff I love. I think it might be equally difficult. I'm not going to sit up. I think I might be susceptible to the same thing, Arlene, which is like,
Hmm.
I love this. Or for me, I fall in love with stuff that's going to really benefit the world, right? So like, oh, how can I help people? So
Yeah.
I don't have the right to not do this because it's going to help this many people. That
Hmm.
part, I think some of
Yeah.
us do that too. Like I think moms and dads do that too, right? It's like
Hmm.
you stop being important when you have children. How many times have you heard that foolishness, right? You're
Yeah.
not important anymore. Okay. So you're going to be a burnout parent, but raise a really great, happy, healthy child. Yeah, right.
Doesn't happen. Yeah.
That
Uh-huh.
child's going to feel your love when you're mad with the world.
Right. Doesn't happen. No, you're right. I
Yeah.
mean, so then let me ask you this. So as we kind of close, what would be your closing comment? Like what would you want people to most take away as they think about recognizing burnout or managing burnout, anything on the topic? What would you say?
I would say engage others in helping you pay attention to your moods and your energy and your time.
Mhm.
And try to listen to the voices in your head that are telling you you have to keep working, you
Mm.
have to keep busy. To go back to what you said, that you have to keep doing,
Mhm.
and shut them off.
Mhm.
Shut them off. Stop listening, at least for some amount of time.
Mhm.
And this is a really practical tip. I like to say, block off times in your life where you're just going to reserve them for you
Mhm.
to rest or have joy,
Mhm.
um, to recharge. Recharging is critical, and I think that's the piece that we talk ourselves out of thinking we deserve.
Mm. Oh, that's good. Something you said brought to mind. I think my sister had said one time that someone had told her that she was a human doing, not a human being.
Yep.
Like you're always
Yep.
doing things. And I think she and I have this in common. So, I mean, as I was thinking about closing, I pulled up my Encanto notes. So, because I told you I was so into this movie, I was like, oh, this thing is deep. Like, so this was in January 8th of 2022. And what I wrote down is like, these are the reminders I wanted to take with me that I got from the movie. Um, your value does not equal your performance.
Hmm.
You're more than your gift. You produce because you're amazing. You're not amazing because you produce. You are valuable. You are enough. Rest in being you. Like you are wonderfully made. And I pulled the scripture, Psalm 139:14. You are wonderfully made. That, and I said, ooh, if I could catch this vibe. Like the idea was like, really, you are a human being and you're valuable just because you are. You don't have to overproduce, overwork. You don't have to do any of that to um, feel successful, like you're saying about chasing success. I think that's what probably has helped me the most and will help me the most going forward if I can kind of remind myself of that and not live my life trying to chase some external value of who I am.
I think that's the big lie, right? That the world tells us is that
Yep.
we have to do something in order to be important or in order to matter.
Yes.
And you just matter. You spend your life unlearning what the world has taught you.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Gosh, we could come to that. I mean, so yeah. So thank you, Brian, for this first guest. Brian will be back as a guest host later too, but I want you to give your contact information again. And also just we didn't mention this, but we're working on a workbook that's going to come out at a point that's going to give resources and tools to help you recognize burnout, manage burnout. So I guess Brian, before we close, anything you want to say on that, and then just your contact information as well.
Super excited about doing the book. When we talked about it, I was like, yeah, A, I get to do it with my friend Arlene, but B, we get to help the world
Mm-hmm.
not suffer as much as we did when we went through it. And then I'm also excited about seeing it right beside that book behind you. So can't
Me
wait till that's
too.
done. But what's really funny side note for you guys is in planning our book design and development, we are very careful to make sure we don't burn ourselves out as we do it. So maybe we'll mention that a little bit more next time we talk. So I'm Brian Crew. I can be reached at Is Your Mind Right on Instagram, and you can also reach me at Brian D Crew. Brian Crew at changeandprocess.com, and that's just via email. So look forward to hearing from everybody and look forward to you reading our book when it comes out.
Yes, for sure. And we'll put your contact information in the show notes too, so if people want to access it there. And so two things in closing. I just one as a reminder, we recently kicked off the Ask the Psychologist component. So you can send me an email with your questions. And if it's on this topic, Brian or I will answer it, or we'll find someone who can. And we'll share some of those questions live on the shows to come. And if you're not in the email group, you can join it by clicking either join the crew in the show notes, or there'll be a QR code up after the YouTube video. And as always, you can find me on Instagram at Arlene_Pace_Green. Thank you all so much for joining this conversation. If no one has told you today, we love you. We are so, so proud of you. You are killing it, and we know that, and we're going to keep killing it while not killing ourselves in the process. So
I
thank you all
love
for
it.
joining. Yes, thank you all for joining, and be well. We'll see you next time.